What up, YouTube? T-Movies here with that new Dracula series premiering on Netflix tomorrow. I decided to go ahead and do my top 10 favorite on-screen portrayals of Dracula. Because I mean, who doesn't love the good Count Dracula there? I mean, Dracula has been portrayed by so many really awesome actors, whether it's live action form or even voiceover form. And Dracula is, like Frankenstein, Dracula is one of the most iconic horror monsters there is. And so, with that being said, here's my 10 favorite on-screen portrayals of Dracula. Coming in at number 10, I'm going to add Luke Evans for Dracula Untold. Now, granted, Dracula Untold was not all that good. I mean, this was actually a movie that Universal was trying to put together this horror this monster cinematic universe. I mean, they were supposed to do what they do with the Avengers, combine lots of the horror universe of monsters in one. I mean, they also tried with the Mummy, that kind of film miserably. But before that, they tried Dracula Untold, which did not succeed at all. But the movie wasn't good, but I will say one thing. Luke Evans as the role of Dracula was perfect casting. He really, it's a shame that we never really got to see the sequel, only because, it would have been cool to see Luke Evans back as Dracula in, maybe a better film. But this Dracula Untold was like an attempt to make Dracula into like a sweeping historical epic and all. And it ended up returning to the life of Vlad the Impaler. And this was also PG-13, which, I'm sorry, Dracula is not really that much of a PG-13 character. But still, anyway. Yeah, Dracula Untold is not a good movie at all, but Luke Evans as Dracula was really brilliant. And it's a shame we never really got to see him as Dracula in at least a better film or another film or whatever. But still, really great portrayal. Alright, coming in at number 9, I'm going to add Gerard Butler for Dracula 2000. Again, the movie's not really that good, but Dracula as a Count Dracula was... but Gerard Butler as Count Dracula was great. You also had... hold on. Alright. You also had Christopher Plummer as Van Helsing, who really imprisoned Count Dracula years ago, and so, in the present day, Van Helsing ends up relying on Dracula in order of Vlad to remain alive and on. And, man, this movie it's not really that great of a film, but, man, Gerard Butler is probably one of his, coolest roles there is. I mean, Gerard Butler has done some interesting roles, but, man, him as Count Dracula, that was pretty cool casting right there. So... and he really played Dracula perfectly. He was very, he played the creepiest aspect pretty well. Really great casting right there. Alright. Coming in at number 8, I'm going to add Duncan Regehr for the Monster Squad. Now Duncan played Dracula awesome. I mean, Monster Squad was really like Stranger Things of that era.
No, that's not it.
I mean, yeah, years before, we had we had stuff like Stranger Things. The 80s had some interesting coming of age adventure based films. Where you talk about the Goonies but back in the 80s they had the Monster Squad about these kids who has to try to take down these where in it, you got a Dracula who's alive in this, and he has a plan to rule the world. That is why he also seeks the help of other legendary monsters. And so you got the kids who are trying to stop his plans and all. And Monster Squad is an 80s horror classic. It's just awesome. The kids in this all really had great chemistry. I mean, this was a bit of the Goonies in a way, but yeah, and you had some interesting other horror monsters. You had Frankenstein was in this. You had the Wolfman. Some really interesting classic monsters. But man, Duncan as Dracula That was really cool right there. Alright. Coming in at number 7. Alright. Coming in at number 7, I'm going to add Leslie Nielsen for Dracula, Dead and Loving It. Now, this movie was directed by Mel Brooks, and it was another one of Mel Brooks' iconic spoof-based movies. Of course, he gave us Young Frankenstein, and then he went ahead and gave us Dracula, Dead and Loving It. Well, not as good or funny as Young Frankenstein was. Yeah, this movie was really still had some good laughs. Leslie Nielsen played like the comedic Dracula very well, and Leslie Nielsen he was a. It is crazy to believe how this guy went from dramas to doing spook comedies like Scary Movie 3. He was in the Naked Gun movies. Leslie Nielsen was the man of spoof-based films, and here he really showed his stuff. I mean, him playing the role Dracula was really perfect. He was funny as a role. Yeah, really amazing film. If you guys haven't really seen Dracula, Dead and Loving It, directed by Mel Brooks, definitely go check it out. And I mean, here of course, Dracula, not to mention, hits like lots of vampire cliches and all, and he's not really a perfect Dracula, but he's still really entertaining as a role. Alright, coming in at number 6, I'm going to add Frank Langella as Dracula for 1973's Dracula. Frank Langella, he's been around for years. You know what? Come on, he was Skeletor after all. Frost Nixon. But man, one of his best roles has got to be playing Dracula in the 1973 version. It was directed by John Badham, who also went on to direct stuff like War Games and Saturday Night Fever. I mean, great that he goes from this to Saturday Night Fever. Interesting turnaround right there. But Frank Langella's Dracula was great. You also had the legendary Laurence Olivier as Van Helsing. You also had, Kate Nelligan was also in this. You had Jan Francis as Mina Van Helsing. Yeah, some really great casting was in this. And John Badham, I think he did a great job at this. And Frank Langella's Dracula, this was actually Frank Langella's, it was really the breakout role of Frank Langella. And since then, he's been in some really great stuff. But him as Dracula was great. He was very creepy. I mean, Dracula of Transylvania. So, yeah. Alright, coming in at number 5, I'm going to add Christopher Lee as Dracula in loads of Dracula films. He played Dracula in 1958's Horror of Dracula, as well as a couple of sequels. I mean, Christopher Lee, he was the man. People now might know him from stuff like, he played Willy Wonka's dad in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. He was in the Lord of the Rings movies. I believe he was in the Star Wars films, now I think. I mean, Christopher Lee's the man, and he's no stranger to the horror genre. He's been in The Wicker Man, but his best role is definitely as Dracula. He's so darn creepy as him. I mean, he really actually looks like what Dracula would be if Dracula was real and all. And yeah, perfect casting right there. Now I probably could have added him at most people would probably add him up a little higher, but my top view I kind of like slightly more. But still, Christopher Lee's portrayal of Dracula is brilliant right there. Alright. Coming in at number 4, I'm going to add Max Schreck for Nosferatu. Now, I never really watch much silent movies or anything. There are a few silent movies that I have seen that I have enjoyed. The Kid with Charlie Chaplin is pretty good. And then there is Nosferatu, the iconic 1922 Dracula adaptation based on Bram Stoker's original novel, directed by F.W. Marnu. I mean, Max Schreck as the role of Count Orlok was brilliant. Which Count Orlok is not really Dracula per se, but he's like more like a stand-in for Dracula. And Max, he was one of the most iconic silent movie actors of the era, and him portraying Count is probably one of the most iconic vampires there is. I mean, nowadays, when you think of vampires, nowadays you think of something sparkly and all that. But vampires there's been some interesting vampire-based stuff, and Max Schreck as the role of Count Olaf was really cool casting. If you guys haven't really seen Nosferatu, definitely go check it out. And there's also a remake of it, but the original is still just iconic. Alright, coming in at number 3, I'm going to add Gary Oldman for Bram Stoker's Dracula. Now, this movie was directed by Francis Ford Coppola, who, of course, gave us the Godfather. He, of course, gave us the, Godfather trilogies, Apocalypse Now. I mean, Francis Ford Coppola is the man. And here he decided to sink his teeth into the horror genre with an interesting way with Bram Stoker's Dracula, starring Gary Oldman as the Tyrell of Dracula. You also had Anthony Hopkins, Winona Ryder. You had Cary Elwes was in this. Richard Grant. Some great casting right here. I mean, this movie was a very interesting period piece based flick. It got released in 1992, I believe, or 93. I know it came out in the early 90s. It's an iconic vampire film right there. And, Gary Oldman looked, of course, Gary Oldman looked very, he looked very unrecognizable as his role. And, I mean, Gary Oldman always has a habit of doing movies where he's unrecognizable in. But, man, Oldman in this was really casting right there. I mean, Dracula, Winston Churchill, James Gordon. What an interesting career Gary Oldman has. Anyway. Alright, my number 2 favorite is a bit of a cop-out because it's animated, not live action. But either his voice as Dracula is perfect. Number 2, I'm going to add Adam Sandler as the voice of Dracula. Or as he's showing him that name Drax, but as the voice of Dracula in the Hotel Transylvania movies. I mean, this is a bit of a cheat because it's not a live action or anything, but I'm adding an animated one, and I love the Hotel Transylvania movies. Adam Sandler as the voice of Dracula, it doesn't really even sound like he's doing Adam Sandler that much, but man, he portrays that. But man, Sandler's voice portrays the Dracula perfectly. You got Selena Gomez voicing the role of Dracula's daughter, Mavis. You also got other actors voicing other iconic monsters, like Kevin James voices Frankenstein. You had Steve Buscemi voicing a werewolf. You had David Spade voiced the Invisible Man. They're really cool voice cast in this. But man, Adam Sandler just his Dracula role is very hilarious, very dumb at times, yeah. I mean, he even, there's lots of Dracula cliches, of course, the blah, blah, blah line. Yeah, Hotel Transylvania, I mean, there's 3 of them, and there's also a 4th one coming out next year, believe it or not. Literally, next year, Hotel Transylvania 4 comes out, so keep your eye out for that. But, yeah, I mean, Adam Sandler I just love him as his voice, and I'm definitely cannot wait to check out part 4, so. And it's also funny because in that movie, I Now Pronounce It Touching Larry with Adam Sandler and Cameron Dane, there's a scene where Adam Sandler is dressed up like a Dracula, so I always found him voicing Dracula in this to be pretty funny there. Alright. Now, who is the best on-screen Dracula of all time? Well, in my opinion, the best on-screen Dracula obviously goes to one of the most iconic, and he's pretty much one of the most iconic Draculas there is. One of the most iconic horror actors, too. Number 1 goes to Bela Lugosi in 1931's Dracula. I mean, how could you do a list and not even add Bela Lugosi? Bela Lugosi really he is the best on-screen Dracula. You know, Christopher Lee was great. Max Shrek was great. Gary Oldman is amazing. But it was really Bela Lugosi sinking in his fangs as the role of Dracula. I mean, I don't even think he ever got an Oscar nomination because he was that great in this movie. He was creepy. I mean, you know, it was also directed by this director named Todd Browning. This also led off to a couple of like this and Frankenstein from the Dirties. Both really brought the horror monsters, you know, to the spotlight. Like, of course, Frankenstein was in the early Dirties along with Dracula. Then they actually ended up meeting one time. And Bela Lugosi had portrayed Dracula a couple of other times in a couple of sequels, and he also portrayed Dracula in an Abbott and Costello based thing. But the original Dracula from 1930, I think it's 1931, 1932. I know it got released in the early 90s. But yeah, full on black and white. One of the most iconic Draculas there is. And this Dracula they show on TV loads of times. And Lugosi, he was always like very, you know, he really loves his character so much. Like, you know, I probably already mentioned. Now, I probably already mentioned this, but when Bela Lugosi, you know, tragically when he passed away, and during his funeral, he was actually dressed up in his Count Dracula costume. So I thought that was pretty cool there too. But if you guys never really seen the original Dracula, definitely go check it out. To me, Bela Lugosi is the best on-screen Dracula ever. All right. That's pretty much it. Alright, let me do the quick rundown. Alright, 10, Luke Evans for Dracula Untold. 9, Gerard Butler for Dracula 2000. 8, Duncan Beggar for the Munster Squad. 7, Leslie Nielsen for Dracula Dead and Loving It. 6, Frank Langella for 1976 Dracula. Christopher Lee for House of Dracula. 4, Max Shrek for Nosferatu. 3, Gary Oldman for Bram Stoker's Dracula. 2, Adam Sandler for Hotel Transylvania. And 1 is Bela Lugosi for 1931 Dracula. Now, there's a few other ones. Like, Jonathan Rhys-Meyers playing Dracula in that TV show on NBC was pretty decent casting. Let's see. Francis Leather for The Return of Dracula is pretty good. Carlos Valderas in 1931's Dracula. Udo Kier in Blood for Dracula is a good one. John Carradine in House of Frankenstein. Or Son of Dracula. I mean, lots of cool on-screen Draculas around. But anyway, let me leave you guys. Who are some of your favorite on-screen portrayals of Dracula? Drop comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell for more notifications. This here is T Movie signing off.